Welcome back to HOA Neighbor Wars. Parking was not the problem, the HOA was. I am standing in the Harbor Point Association guest lot at 6 in the morning, still in my work boots from the overnight shift at the water treatment plant, and Stephanie Nelson is screaming at me about my license plate being too dusty to verify my permit. She has a flashlight clipped to her vest like she is security, a portable thermal printer in one hand, and a key ring with too many keys jingling like it is authority. I can see the tire clamp already locked on my front wheel, and the tow truck is idling behind her with the winch cable stretched tight across the frame, ready to drag my car onto the flatbed. I have been awake for 16 hours, my shift starts again in 10, and this woman is telling me I parked illegally in a spot I have been using for 3 months with a valid resident guest pass. She waves the thermal printer at me like it settles everything. The wind is whipping loose papers around the lot, and I can hear the tow chain rattling against the truck bed. There is a board member standing about 20 feet away, pretending to check his mailbox but clearly watching, and I know he is not going to help. Stephanie says, "I am calling management, and I am going to be dramatic about it." I keep my voice calm and ask her to show me which rule I violated. She rattles off something about dusty plates being a verification failure and guest passes not covering overnight storage. I ask her to repeat it. She does, louder this time, and I feel my phone recording in my jacket pocket. I let her say my name loud, because later I wanted it on the recording. Stephanie prints a violation slip on the spot, and it says guest pass invalid due to unverifiable vehicle registration. I ask her how she determined that without running my plate, and she says the dust made it unreadable. I point out that the plate is readable from where we are standing, and she switches tactics. She says the guest pass expired yesterday. I pull out my phone and show her the email confirmation from the HOA office that extended it through the end of the month. She does not even look at the screen. She says guest passes do not cover overnight parking, which is a new rule I have never heard. I ask where that rule is written, and she jingles those keys and says it is in the updated bylaws. I ask for a copy. She says they are not public yet. The tow driver is standing by his truck, arms crossed, waiting. Stephanie tells him to proceed. I step in front of the car and say I am not moving until someone from management confirms this. She pulls out her phone and makes a show of calling the office, but it is 6 in the morning and nobody is answering. I say I will wait. She says the tow yard adds an after-hours gate fee and they are minutes from closing the window, so if I do not move my car gets impounded and I pay storage on top of the tow. I ask the driver if he has the signed tow authorization. He looks uncomfortable and says the HOA treasurer gave verbal approval. I tell him verbal approval is not valid under Montana towing law. Stephanie steps closer and says, "I have done this before and people fold every time." That is when I realize this is not about the plate or the pass. This is about control. Stephanie runs the books for Harbor Point, and I have been asking questions about line item fees on the monthly statements. 2 months ago, I noticed a legal fee charge that nobody could explain. I filed a records request. She ignored it. I filed a second one with the management company. She sent me a letter saying records requests require board approval, which is not true under Montana law. I sent a certified letter back citing the statute. She has been looking for a reason to hit me ever since. I work nights at the water treatment plant, and my license and certification depend on staying out of legal trouble. One lien, one collections account, one unpaid fine that goes to judgment, and I am flagged in the state system. Stephanie knows this because I mentioned it at a board meeting when she threatened to fine me for leaving my trash can out past noon on collection day. I thought being transparent would make her back off. Instead, she has been testing every gray area in the rules to see if she can provoke me into doing something stupid. The tow threat is just the latest move. The tow driver walks over and says he cannot proceed without a signed authorization, and Stephanie loses it. She screams at him that she is the treasurer and her word is enough. He shakes his head and says his company requires paperwork for liability. She prints another slip on that thermal printer and tries to hand it to him. He says it has to be on company letterhead with a signature. She tells him she will have him banned from the vendor list. He shrugs and says there are other HOAs. He gets in his truck and drives off, leaving the tire clamp still locked on my wheel. Stephanie turns to me and says the clamp stays until I pay the violation fee. I ask how much. She says $200 for the invalid pass, $150 for the tow call-out, and another $100 for obstructing enforcement. $450 total. I ask for an itemized invoice. She waves the thermal printout and says that is the invoice. I take a picture of it. She says I am not allowed to photograph HOA documents. I say it is a picture of a piece of paper she handed me in a public parking lot. She jingles those keys again and says she is adding another $50 for insubordination. I call my buddy Travis, who is a real estate agent in town. He has seen HOA lien games before, and he warned me what liens and disclosures would do to my credit and my ability to refinance or sell. He picks up on the second ring. I explain the situation. He says to document everything, pay nothing without a written breakdown, and file a complaint with the management company immediately. He also says to check if the tow vendor is licensed, because Missoula has strict towing ordinances and unlicensed operators get shut down fast. I thank him and hang up. Stephanie is on her phone now, pacing near the mailboxes. The board member who was pretending to be neutral has disappeared. I walk around my car and take photos of the clamp, the lot, the guest pass visible on my dashboard, and the permit decal on my windshield. I also take a wide shot showing the lot is half empty, no fire lane markers, and no signage saying overnight parking is banned. Then I check my doorbell camera app. I installed a battery-powered doorbell camera on my carport post last month after Stephanie left a violation notice on my door while I was at work. The camera has a motion log. I scroll back to yesterday evening. There is a clip of Stephanie walking up to my carport at 7 p.m., looking at my car, taking a photo of the plate, and walking away. No knock. No attempt to contact me. I save the clip. I stand up and call the Harbor Point Management Company. The office does not open until 8, so I leave a voicemail. I explain that the treasurer has placed a tire clamp on my vehicle without valid cause, demanded fees without an itemized invoice, and threatened to tow me under a rule that does not exist in the current bylaws. I say I have documentation, and I am requesting an immediate reversal. I also mentioned that the tow vendor left without completing the tow because the authorization was improper. Then I send the same message in an email with photos attached. Stephanie finishes her call and walks back over. She says management will handle this on Monday. I point out that today is Friday. She smiles and says I should have thought about that before I parked illegally. I ask her again to show me the rule. She says it is in the updated bylaws that the board approved last week. I ask when those bylaws were posted for member review. She says they do not have to be posted until 30 days after approval. I tell her that means they are not enforceable yet. She jingles those keys and says the board can enforce rules immediately in cases of health and safety. I ask how my parked car is a health and safety issue. She says it is blocking emergency access. I look around the lot. My car is in a marked guest space, nowhere near a hydrant or fire lane. I take another photo. Stephanie says if I do not pay by end of business today, the clamp stays on through the weekend and she will add a daily storage fee. I ask what storage fee. She prints another slip and hands it to me. It says $25 per day for immobilized vehicle storage in common area. I ask her where that fee is documented. She says it is a standard enforcement cost. I tell her I am not paying anything until I get a written breakdown from management with citations to the actual rules. She says I am going to regret this. I go home, take a shower, and try to sleep, but I am too angry. I pull up the Harbor Point bylaws on my laptop. The current version is dated 18 months ago. There is no overnight parking ban in the guest lot. There is no vehicle verification requirement. There is no immobilization fee. I search for any amendments posted in the member portal. Nothing. I download the full document and save it as a PDF with the date stamp visible. Then I open the email chain with the management company. I reply to my earlier message with the PDF attached and ask them to confirm that the version I have is the current enforceable document. I also ask for a copy of any amendments approved in the last 60 days. Then I check the Montana towing statutes. Unauthorized towing requires a signed authorization from the property owner or their agent, and the authorization has to include specific information, vehicle description, plate number, reason for tow, and signature. A thermal printout from the treasurer does not meet that standard. I also find a section about vehicle immobilization devices. They can only be used if the property owner has posted clear signage about the immobilization policy, and the device has to include contact information for removal. I walk back out to the parking lot. There is no signage. The clamp has no contact information. I take more photos. I email Travis the photos and ask if he knows a lawyer who handles HOA disputes. He replies in 10 minutes with a name and a phone number. He says the guy does free consults, and he has beaten Harbor Point before on a landscaping enforcement case. I call and leave a message. Then I sit down and write out a timeline. Stephanie has been escalating since I filed that records request. First, it was the trash can warning. Then it was a notice about my outdoor light being too bright, even though it is the same fixture that was there when I moved in. Then it was a complaint that my car was parked in the guest lot too often, even though I have a valid pass. Now it is the clamp and the tow threat. Every step has been about finding a gray area she can weaponize. I also pull up the HOA budget document from the annual meeting. There is a line item for legal fees that jumped from $1,200 last year to $8,500 this year. No explanation. I cross-reference it with the vendor list. The law firm is the same one Stephanie used when another owner challenged a fine 2 years ago. The case got dropped, but the HOA still paid the firm $4,000. I make a note to ask management about that. My phone buzzes. It is an email from the management company. They say they are looking into my complaint and they will have a response by end of business Monday. I reply and say the clamp needs to be removed today because it is preventing me from getting to work tonight. They do not respond. I try to sleep again and manage about 3 hours. When I wake up, it is 2 in the afternoon. I check my car. The clamp is still there. I take another photo with a timestamp. Then I walk to the HOA office, which is in a small building near the pool. The door is locked. There is a sign that says office hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 to 3. I take a photo of the sign. I also notice there is a drop box for after-hours payments. I do not put anything in it. Stephanie pulls up in her car while I am standing there. She gets out and asks what I am doing. I say I am trying to reach someone in the office. She says the office is closed and I need to leave. I point out that I am standing on common area property. She says I am loitering. I ask her if there is someone I can speak to about the clamp. She says she already told me the process. Pay the fees or the clamp stays on. I ask her one more time to show me the written rule that authorizes the clamp. She pulls out her phone and takes a picture of me. I ask what that is for. She says she is documenting my harassment. I walk back to my unit. I am scheduled to work tonight at 10, and I need to figure out how to get to the plant. My car is clamped. Travis is out of town. The plant is 12 miles away and there is no bus route. I could call an Uber, but that is going to cost me $40 round trip for the next 3 days if the clamp does not come off. I sit down and look at the timeline again. Stephanie printed the first violation slip at 6 a.m. She called the tow truck before she even talked to me. That means she planned this. The dusty plate was just the excuse. She wanted to catch me coming off shift when I was too tired to fight. I open my laptop and start drafting a formal complaint to the management company. I include the timeline, the photos, the bylaws PDF, the doorbell camera clip, and the towing statute citations. I also include a request for an emergency hearing with the board to address the unauthorized enforcement action. I attach certified mail receipts showing I sent the records request and the follow-up letter. I save the draft and decide to send it first thing Monday morning when the office opens. But I also know Stephanie is going to add more fees over the weekend, and if I wait too long, the amount will balloon into something I cannot fight without a lawyer. I check the doorbell camera app again. There is another motion alert from an hour ago. It is Stephanie standing at my carport, looking at my car, and taking another photo. She does not knock. I save the clip. Then I notice something. In the background of the clip, there is a neighbor walking a dog. I recognize him. His name is Mark, and he is on the board. He is the same guy who was pretending to check his mailbox this morning. He is in the frame for about 3 seconds, and he clearly sees Stephanie taking the photo. He does not say anything. He just keeps walking. I save that clip separately. I spend the rest of the afternoon going through the member portal and downloading every document I can find. Budget reports, board meeting minutes, vendor contracts, bylaws amendments that were never finalized. I find a draft amendment from 6 months ago that mentions overnight parking restrictions, but it was never brought to a vote. I also find a meeting minute from last month where Stephanie proposed adding an immobilization fee to the enforcement schedule. The motion failed. 2 board members voted against it, citing lack of legal review. Stephanie pushed for a second vote and got outvoted again. That means the fee she is trying to charge me does not exist. I screenshot the meeting minutes and add them to my complaint file. Then I get ready for work. I call an Uber. The driver picks me up at 9:30, and I get to the plant 15 minutes before shift starts. My supervisor asks why I did not drive. I explain the situation. He shakes his head and says HOAs are a scam. I agree. I work my shift, monitoring chlorine levels and running pump diagnostics, and the whole time I am thinking about how to get the clamp off without paying Stephanie a dime. At 4 in the morning, I check my email on my phone during a break. There is a message from the lawyer Travis recommended. He says he reviewed the photos I sent and the situation is clear-cut. Stephanie violated Montana towing law by immobilizing my vehicle without proper authorization or signage. He says if I want to pursue it, he can send a demand letter to the management company and the board on Monday. He also says I should file a complaint with the city parking office because they regulate tow vendors and immobilization devices. He sends me a link to the complaint form. I fill it out on my phone and submit it before my shift ends. I take another Uber home. It is 6 a.m. Saturday. The clamp is still on my car. I take another time-stamped photo. Then I go inside and sleep until noon. When I wake up, I checked the member portal. There is a new message from Stephanie. It is addressed to all members and it says the board is cracking down on guest parking violations due to complaints about overcrowding. It says any vehicle without a current valid pass will be subject to immediate immobilization and towing. It does not mention my car specifically, but the timing is obvious. I screenshot the message and add it to my file. I also checked the doorbell camera. There is a new clip from this morning at 8. Stephanie is back at my carport with someone I do not recognize. They are both looking at my car. The other person is holding a handheld scanner and pointing it at my license plate. They talk for a minute, then walk away. I save the clip. I have no idea what the scanner is for, but it feels like more evidence that this is not about dusty plates or guest passes. This is about building a case to justify the fees. If you are enjoying this HOA chaos, hit that like button and subscribe because it gets so much better. I spend the rest of Saturday documenting everything. I walk around the neighborhood and take photos of every car parked in guest spaces. Half of them have no visible pass. None of them have clamps. I also check the fire lane areas. There are no cars blocking hydrants or access points. I take wide shots showing the entire parking lot layout. Then I go back to the bylaws and read the enforcement section again. It says the board has to provide written notice of a violation and give the owner 10 days to cure before imposing a fine. Stephanie skipped that step. She went straight to immobilization. On Sunday morning, I get an email from the management company. They say they spoke with Stephanie and reviewed the violation. They say the guest pass on my vehicle was expired at the time of enforcement and the immobilization was appropriate under the rules. They say I can pay the fees online or mail a check, and once payment is received, the clamp will be removed within 24 hours. They do not address any of the points I raised in my complaint. They do not provide a copy of the rule Stephanie cited. They do not explain why the bylaws I have do not match the enforcement action. I reply and ask for a formal hearing. They say hearings are scheduled at the next board meeting, which is 3 weeks away. I call the lawyer. He says 3 weeks is too long, and the management company is stalling. He says he can file an emergency motion in county court to compel removal of the clamp, but it will cost me a retainer up front, and there is no guarantee I will recover the fees even if I win. He also says the faster move is to escalate the city complaint and get the parking office involved, because they have enforcement authority over tow vendors and they can force the clamp off if they determine it was placed illegally. I ask how long that takes. He says usually a few days. I thank him and hang up. I call the city parking office. It is Sunday, so I get voicemail. I leave a message explaining that I filed a complaint on Friday and I need an urgent follow-up because the clamp is preventing me from getting to work. I also mention that the HOA treasurer is adding daily fees and threatening to tow if I do not pay. I give them my phone number and email. Then I take another Uber to work. $80 in rideshare costs so far. Stephanie is going to owe me every penny of this when I am done. Monday morning, I wake up to an email from the city. They say an inspector will be out to review the clamp situation by end of business today. They also say they contacted the tow vendor whose name was on the work order Stephanie printed. The vendor told them they did not complete the tow because the authorization was improper, and they confirmed they left the clamp on site at the request of the HOA treasurer. The city says that is a problem, because the vendor is required to remove immobilization devices if they do not complete the tow. They are opening an investigation into the vendor, and they are requiring the HOA to remove the clamp immediately or face a citation. I forward the email to the management company and ask when they plan to remove the clamp. I also attach the meeting minutes showing the immobilization fee was never approved. I copy the lawyer. An hour later, I get a call from the property manager. Her name is Angela, and she sounds annoyed. She says Stephanie provided incorrect information about the bylaws, and the immobilization was not authorized under the current enforcement policy. She says they are sending someone to remove the clamp this afternoon. She also says the fees are being reversed, and I will receive a written reversal from management with a real citation correction notice by end of week. I ask about the daily storage fees Stephanie threatened. Angela says there are no storage fees, and Stephanie does not have the authority to create fees without board approval. I thank her and hang up. At 2 p.m. I get a text from Angela with a photo. The clamp is off. I walk out to the parking lot and check my car. The clamp is gone. There is no damage to the wheel. I take a photo showing the car is free and clear. Then I sit in the driver's seat and take a breath. I have been fighting this for 3 days, and it feels like a small victory, but I know Stephanie is not going to let this go. She has too much ego invested. Tuesday morning I get the written reversal from management. It is a 1-page letter on company letterhead signed by Angela. It says the violation notice issued on Friday was incorrect, the immobilization was unauthorized, and all associated fees are voided. It also says the HOA is reviewing enforcement procedures with the board to prevent future errors. I save the letter and email a copy to the lawyer. He replies and says this is a good outcome, but I should still attend the board meeting and raise the records request issue, because Stephanie is going to try to bury this. I go to work that night feeling lighter. My supervisor asks if I got the car situation sorted. I tell him it is handled. He says good, because we need everyone on schedule this week for a system upgrade. I focus on the work and try not to think about Stephanie. Wednesday afternoon, I get an email from Stephanie. It is sent to me directly, not through the management company. The subject line says parking compliance reminder. The message says that while the immobilization fee was reversed due to a procedural error, the underlying violation remains valid. She says I am required to reapply for a guest pass and provide current vehicle registration documents within 5 business days, or my parking privileges will be suspended. She also says any future violations will result in immediate towing without notice. I read it twice. She is trying to rewrite what happened. The violation was not valid. The management company said so in writing. But she is pretending the reversal was just a technicality. I forward the email to Angela and ask for clarification. She replies within the hour. She says Stephanie does not have the authority to suspend parking privileges, and my current guest pass is valid through the end of the month as originally approved. She also says she is going to speak with Stephanie about sending unauthorized enforcement emails. I thank her. Then I screenshot the email exchange and add it to my file. Stephanie is digging herself deeper. Thursday, I get a call from the city parking office. The inspector says they completed their review and determined that the tow vendor violated city towing ordinances by leaving an immobilization device on a vehicle without completing the tow. The vendor is being fined and required to submit a corrective action plan. The inspector also says the HOA is being warned that any future unauthorized immobilizations will result in citations against the association. I ask if I need to do anything else. He says no. The case is closed on their end, but I can file a separate complaint with the state contractor board if I want to pursue the vendor further. I say I will think about it. Friday afternoon, I get another email from Angela. She says the board is scheduling a special meeting to review enforcement policies, and she is inviting me to attend as a guest. The meeting is next Tuesday at 6 p.m. She says I can bring documentation and make a statement if I want. I reply and say I will be there. Then I call the lawyer and ask if he can attend. He says he cannot make it, but he will send a letter to the board beforehand outlining the legal issues with what Stephanie did. He also says I should request a copy of the meeting recording, because boards hate being recorded and it will keep them honest. Over the weekend, I prepare for the meeting. I print out the timeline, the emails, the photos, the bylaws, the meeting minutes, the city inspection report, and the reversal letter from management. I organize everything in a binder with tabs. I also write out a short statement. I am not trying to humiliate Stephanie in front of the board, but I need them to understand that this was not a simple mistake. She targeted me because I asked questions about the budget, and she used fake rules to justify it. If they let her get away with it, she will do it to someone else. Monday night, I do not sleep well. I keep running through what I am going to say at the meeting. I also keep thinking about the trump card I have been holding. The management company invoice trail. I found it buried in a budget line item 2 months ago when I was reviewing the financials. The HOA hired the law firm to review a bylaw amendment last year. The amendment never got passed, but the firm billed the HOA for 8 hours of work at $300 an hour. The invoice shows Stephanie approved the payment without board vote. That is a violation of the spending authority limits in the bylaws. Any expenditure over $500 requires board approval. I have the invoice, the bylaws section, and the meeting minutes showing no vote was taken. I have not told anyone about it yet, not even Travis or the lawyer, because I wanted to save it for the right moment. Tuesday at 6 p.m. I walk into the HOA clubhouse. The board is sitting at a long table. Stephanie is on the far left. Mark, the board member who watched her take photos of my car, is next to her. There are 3 other board members I do not recognize. Angela is sitting off to the side with a laptop. There are about 10 other residents in the audience. I sit in the front row. Stephanie does not look at me. The meeting starts with routine business: budget updates, landscaping bids, pool maintenance. Then, Angela reads a statement about the parking enforcement incident. She says the management company reviewed the matter and determined that the immobilization was not authorized under current policy, and steps are being taken to improve communication between the board and staff. She does not name Stephanie. She does not mention the fake fees. It is a sanitized version of what happened, and I can see Stephanie relaxing a little. The board president asks if anyone wants to comment. I raise my hand. He nods at me. I stand up and walk to the front. I introduce myself and say I want to provide context about the enforcement incident. I open the binder and start with the timeline. I explain that Stephanie placed the clamp on my car without notice, demanded fees under rules that do not exist, and ignored the management company reversal by sending me a follow-up email threatening to suspend my parking privileges. I show the board the printed emails, the photos, the bylaws, and the city inspection report. I keep my tone calm and factual. I do not call Stephanie names. I just let the documents speak. Stephanie interrupts and says I am misrepresenting what happened. She says the guest pass was expired, and I refuse to provide updated registration documents. I pull out my phone and open the email confirmation from the HOA office showing the pass was extended. I hold the phone up so the board can see the date stamp. She says the email is not valid because it did not come from her. I ask her if she is saying the HOA office issued an invalid pass. She does not answer. Mark tries to jump in and says the board is working on updating the parking policy, and this is all part of the process. I ask him if the process includes ignoring state towing laws. He does not answer. Then I pull out the meeting minutes. I read the section where Stephanie proposed the immobilization fee and the board voted it down. Twice. I asked the board president if Stephanie has the authority to create fees that the board rejected. He looks uncomfortable and says no. I ask if there are any other fees or charges Stephanie has been approving without board vote. He says they will review the financials. Stephanie is staring at me now, and I can see she knows where this is going. I pause and say I have one more thing. I pull out the invoice from the law firm. I explained that Stephanie approved an $8,400 payment for a bylaw amendment that never got passed, and she did it without board vote. I show the board the invoice, the bylaws section on spending authority, and the meeting minutes. I say this is a pattern. Stephanie uses her position to bypass the rules when it is convenient, and she punishes anyone who asks questions. I let her say my name loud, because later I wanted it on the recording. The board president asks Stephanie if the invoice is accurate. She says the payment was for legal review and it was necessary. He asks if she brought it to the board for approval. She says it was an emergency expenditure. He asks what the emergency was. She does not answer. He looks at Angela and asks her to pull the financial records for the last year and flag any payments over $500 that do not have board approval. Angela nods and makes a note. Mark tries to defend Stephanie. He says she has been treasurer for 5 years and she has always acted in the best interest of the association. I ask him if he thinks targeting me with fake violations is in the best interest of the association. He says I am being dramatic. I say Stephanie told me herself. I am calling management and I am going to be dramatic about it. That is a direct quote. Several residents in the audience laugh. Mark turns red. Stephanie stands up and says she is done with this. She says I have been harassing her for months, and this is retaliation for her trying to enforce the rules. I ask her which rules. She says the overnight parking ban. I ask her to show me where it is written. She says it is in the updated bylaws. I ask her when those bylaws were posted for member review. She says they were approved by the board. I ask her when they were posted. She does not answer. The board president asks Angela to pull the current bylaws and read the parking section. Angela opens her laptop and pulls up the document. She reads the section. There is no overnight parking ban. Stephanie sits down. Then I play the trump card. I pull out my phone and open the doorbell camera app. I find the clip from the morning Stephanie placed the clamp. I ask the board president if I can play a video. He nods. I connect my phone to the TV in the corner of the room. The clip plays. It shows Stephanie walking up to my car at 7 p.m. the night before the clamp incident, taking a photo of my license plate, and walking away. Then it shows Mark walking past in the background, seeing her, and not saying anything. I play the clip out loud in the meeting so Karen cannot talk over it. The room is silent. I say the clip proves Stephanie planned the clamp incident in advance. She came by the night before to document my car, even though my guest pass was valid. She did not knock. She did not try to contact me. She just took a photo and walked away. Then she showed up at 6 a.m. with a tow truck and a fake violation notice. I ask the board if that sounds like enforcement or harassment. Nobody answers. The board president says they are going to take a recess. The board members go into a side room. Angela stays in the main room. Stephanie walks outside. Mark follows her. I sit down and wait. Travis texts me and asks how it is going. I tell him I just dropped the nuke. He sends back a thumbs up emoji. 20 minutes later, the board comes back. The president says they have reviewed the information, and they are referring the matter to the HOA attorney for a full audit of enforcement actions and financial approvals over the last 2 years. He says Stephanie will remain treasurer pending the audit, but all spending authority over $500 is suspended. He also says the board is rescinding the draft parking amendments, and they will reopen the comment period for any future changes. He thanks me for bringing the issues forward and says the meeting is adjourned. Stephanie does not say anything. She grabs her bag and walks out. Mark follows her. I stay and talk to a few residents who thank me for standing up. One woman says Stephanie hit her with a landscaping fine last year and she paid it because she did not know how to fight. I give her the lawyer's phone number and tell her to call if she wants to challenge it. I drive home and sit in my car for a minute. I feel exhausted but relieved. The clamp is off. The fees are reversed. The board knows what Stephanie did. The audit will force her to answer for the spending violations. It is not a total victory yet, but it is close. The next week, Angela emails me to say the HOA attorney reviewed the invoice I provided and confirmed that the payment was improper. The attorney is recommending that the board adopt a formal spending policy and require dual approval for any legal or vendor expenses over $1,000. The attorney also reviewed the enforcement actions Stephanie took against me and determined they were not supported by the bylaws. The attorney is recommending a written reversal from management with a real citation correction in my file and a formal apology from the board. I get the apology letter 2 days later. It is short and corporate, but it is in writing. Stephanie resigns as treasurer the following Monday. The board announces it in an email blast. They say she is stepping down to focus on other priorities. They do not mention the audit or the spending violations. I do not care. She is gone. A week after that, I get a call from the tow vendor. The owner says he heard about the parking office investigation and he wants to apologize. He says Stephanie pressured him to place the clamp even after he told her the authorization was not valid. He says he left it on because she threatened to blacklist his company from the HOA vendor list. He also says he checked his dash camera footage from that morning and found something interesting. He asks if I want to see it. I say yes. He pulls up the footage on his laptop. It shows the parking lot from the tow truck's perspective. Stephanie is visible in the frame, and she is placing orange traffic cones in a line behind my car. The timestamp shows it is about 10 minutes before she called me over. She is creating a fake fire lane. The tow company dash camera captures Karen moving cones to create a fake fire lane claim. The vendor says he did not notice it at the time, but when he reviewed the footage he realized she was setting me up. He saved the clip and sent it to the parking office. He also sent it to Angela. I ask him what happened. He says the parking office added it to their investigation file, and they warned him that if he ever completes a tow based on a fake fire lane claim, he will lose his business license. He says he is dropping Harbor Point as a client because he does not want to risk his license. He also says he refunded the HOA for the call-out fee, and he sent me a check for $100 as an apology for the inconvenience. I thank him and shake his hand. The next board meeting is 2 weeks later. I do not attend, but Angela emails me a summary. The audit is complete. Stephanie approved 6 payments over $500 without board vote, totaling over $15,000. The HOA attorney is recommending that the board pursue reimbursement. The board voted to send Stephanie a formal demand letter. If she does not respond within 30 days, they will file a claim in small claims court. Angela also says the board adopted the new spending policy and they are revising the enforcement procedures to require management company approval before any immobilization or towing. I get a letter from Stephanie 3 weeks later. It is hand-delivered to my mailbox. The envelope has no return address. Inside is a single sheet of paper. It says, "I was trying to protect the neighborhood. You made this personal. I throw it away." Travis calls me a few days later and says he heard through the real estate grapevine that Stephanie is selling her unit and moving out. He says the HOA lien drama scared off buyers and she is having trouble closing. I do not feel bad for her. She brought this on herself. I have done this before, and people fold every time. Not this time. The HOA settles with me a month later. They agree to reimburse me for the Uber costs, issue a formal written apology, and expunge all references to the parking incident from my account. Angela sends me the settlement agreement, and I sign it. The lawyer reviews it first and says it is a clean outcome. I pay him for his time and thank him. The tow vendor gets a warning from the city but keeps his license. He sends me a thank you card for cooperating with the investigation. He also says he referred the parking office to 2 other HOAs where he suspects similar issues. I hope they follow up. Stephanie's unit sells in late spring. I see the moving truck outside her building one Saturday morning. I do not go over. I do not say anything. I just watch from my window as they load the last boxes and drive away. Mark moves out 2 months later. I hear he got voted off the board after residents found out he knew about Stephanie's fake enforcement actions and did not say anything. The HOA is quieter now. The new treasurer is a retired accountant who posts the budget reports in the member portal every month. The board meetings are shorter and less dramatic. I still go to a few of them, just to make sure they do not slide back into the old habits. But for the most part, things are normal. I park in the guest lot. My pass is valid. Nobody puts a clamp on my car. I go to work, come home, and do not think about Stephanie anymore. I ran into the woman who paid the landscaping fine a few months later. She told me she called the lawyer and challenged it. The HOA refunded her money and apologized. She said she never would have fought it if I had not stood up first. I told her I was glad she got her money back. Travis and I have a beer one night in the summer, and he asks me if I would do it again. I say yes. He says most people would not. They would pay the fee and move on because fighting is exhausting. I tell him I did not have a choice. My license depends on staying clean, and Stephanie was trying to ruin that over a records request. He says I handled it right. I say I just followed the rules and made sure they did too. I still have the binder with all the documents in a box under my desk. I do not look at it often, but I keep it in case I ever need to prove what happened. I also kept the doorbell camera. It is still on the carport post, recording every time someone walks up. I check the app a few times a week. Old habits. The best part of all this is watching the board scramble when the attorney forced a reversal to reduce liability. They knew Stephanie had been running her own little fiefdom, but they did not realize how deep it went until I brought the receipts. The audit turned up spending violations, fake fees, and enforcement actions that had no basis in the bylaws. The attorney told them if they did not clean it up, the association could face legal exposure from other owners. So they reversed everything, adopted new policies, and forced Stephanie out. It was not about justice. It was about covering their own liability. But I will take it. Karen's timeline is proven false with timestamps. The doorbell camera clip, the city inspection report, the tow vendor dash camera, and the certified mail receipts all showed she lied about when my pass expired, why she placed the clamp, and whether she tried to contact me. She claimed she never came by and the doorbell video plays, and suddenly her whole story falls apart. The board could not ignore it. The management company could not spin it. She was caught. The funny thing is, Stephanie set herself up. She told me, "I have done this before and people fold every time." She thought I would be the same. She thought she could bully me into paying fake fees and disappearing. But she picked the wrong target. I had the time, the documents, and the stubbornness to fight, and when she kept escalating, she gave me more evidence. Every email, every photo, every violation slip was another piece of proof that this was not about parking. It was about power. And when I finally played the clips and showed the invoices, her power evaporated. I never wanted to be the guy who fights the HOA. I just wanted to park my car and go to work. But Stephanie forced my hand, and I am glad I pushed back. Because now the rules apply to everyone, not just the people Stephanie did not like. And the next person who gets hit with a fake violation will have a roadmap for how to fight it. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next HOA story.